Heading into the 1990s, Mike Tyson was the undisputed, universally recognised heavyweight champion of the world. He'd famously become the youngest heavyweight champion in history at the age of 20 in 1986 when he knocked out Trevor Berbick. In 1987, he added the WBA and IBF titles to his collection by beating James Bone Crusher Smith and, of course, Tony Tucker. And then in 1988, he removed all doubt about who the top heavyweight in the world was when he famously blasted out Michael Spinks, who was the lineal champion because he'd beaten Larry Holmes. Blasted him out in 91 seconds, and Mike Tyson was the man. He was the top heavyweight. He was undisputed. He was the first undisputed. They'd been in a long time, and he walked into the 1990s as the man, the top man in the heavyweight division. 1989, the WBO was founded, and Italy's Francesco Damiani, he became the inaugural WBO champion when he beat Johnny Duploy. Duploy. I do apologise to any South Africans out there. I've probably screwed that guy's name up. Do apologise. Anyway, Francesco Damiani won the newly created WBO heavyweight title. And at that time, the WBO was kind of not really taken seriously as a world title, although it was a title, obviously, and it is now, these days. But back then, when it was first founded, it was kind of frowned upon. Nobody really cared about it, and nobody took it seriously. So obviously Mike Tyson was the top man, but it's worth noting, going into 1990, that Francesco Damiani was the WBO heavyweight champion. Now, the first title fight of this wonderful decade that I love so much, Iron Mike Tyson put his WBA, WBC, and IBF titles on the line against James Buster Douglas at the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. Now, what a way to kick off this decade. Now, this fight is probably the biggest upset in boxing history. James Buster Douglas was a 42-1 underdog. He was given a snowball's chance in hell, as they say. He was a decent fighter. He had a decent record. He had decent wins against people like Trevor Berbick and Oliver McCall. But his lone title shot he'd ever had before was in 1987, where he lost to Tony Tucker for the vacant IBF title, which Michael Spinks had recently vacated. And he was winning, and he was doing ever so well. He was a very capable man, was Douglas, but he ran out of steam, and he was stopped on his feet. So heading into this fight with Mike Tyson, he wasn't viewed as much of a threat, and it was expected to be over rather quickly. However, little did a lot of people know, this would be the biggest upset in heavyweight history, in my opinion. 3 weeks before the fight, Buster Douglas had lost his beloved mother. He wasn't expected to win, as I say. No one gave him a chance. So he walked into this fight with the attitude of, sod it, I've got nothing to lose. So from the opening round, he went straight to work. He was out jabbing Tyson. He was landing the right hand at will at times. He was roughing Tyson up on the inside in the clinches. Tyson had no answer to any of this. He was clearly overwhelmed and underprepared. He was clearly looking forward to a showdown with Evander Holyfield, which was due to happen in 1990. And by the fifth round, Tyson's left eye had started to swell up quite badly. But so underprepared were Tyson and his corner that they had no end swell and they had no ice. So they resorted to filling a latex glove with cold water and holding that against his eye, which basically did nothing. It was quite shocking that the world heavyweight champions cornermen were just totally unprepared for this scenario. And he was like sluggish. He was getting hit too much. He had nothing he was doing was effective. Buster Douglas just had an answer for everything. Like I say, he was out jabbing him. He was smashing that right hand through, left hooks on the inside, working the body at times, and Tyson had nothing. Now, it was looking pretty desperate. At the end of the eighth round, or quite late in the eighth round, Mike Tyson landed a picture-perfect right uppercut, bang, straight, smashed Douglas's head back, and he went down on his arse, and he stayed down for a bit, and he got up at 9, and he survived the end of the round. Now, obviously, this would become a big talking point, which is still discussed to this day. The long count. The referee counted, got to 9. He took his cue from the timekeeper at ringside, like they all do, and he got to 9. Now, there's a lot of people who moan these days that it was a long count. He was down for 12. Oh, yeah, all this sort of stuff. Look, it is what it is. It's the referee's 10 count. The referee hasn't got a stopwatch. He's got the timekeeper as a guide, but he hasn't got a stopwatch in front of him. It's the referee's 10 count. Now, you look at any 10 count in history when a boxer has been knocked out, and if you actually watch it and you actually have a stopwatch on you, 9 times out of 10 sometimes it'll be too quick. So when they reach 10, they count to 10. It'll actually only be 7 or 8 seconds that have passed. Or the other way, like I say, by the time they get to 10, 11 to 15 seconds could have passed. It's just one of those things. But anyway, the story is Douglas survived the round, went back to his corner. Mike Tyson came out for the night thinking he was going to have him, and it didn't work. Nothing he did work. And Buster Douglas continued to do his good work. He was out jabbing him, smashing that right hand through. By this point, Tyson's left eye was completely swollen shut. He couldn't see a fucking thing out of it, you know. And famously, in the 10th round, the end came when Buster Douglas smashed a right uppercut through, which basically finished the fight. He followed up with a 4-punch combination, which was punctuated by a final left hand. Mike Tyson went down for the first time as a professional, and he was counted out by the referee, and we had a new WBA, WBC, and IBF undisputed, universally recognised heavyweight champion of the world. And it's quite, the image I have in my head whenever I think about this fight it's quite a sad scene. Was Mike Tyson crawling around on all fours, trying to shove his gum shield back in his mouth, and it was back to front. He was finished. He was gone. It was over. So the unimaginable happened. The upset of the century, if you will, of all time. Buster Douglas was the new champion. Now, in the aftermath, because of as I said before, the controversy of the long count, Don King, the promoter of both men, I'd like to add, and the heads of the WBA and WBC tried to reverse the decision. They tried to say that Mike Tyson should have won by knockout, and they were going to take the titles off Douglas. Now, the IBF still they recognised it. They recognised the referee's count, and that was that. So they would recognise Douglas as the world heavyweight champion. But the WBA and WEC, along with Don King, were desperately going to try and get it reversed. However, due to public outcry, people thought it was a dirty, scummy thing to do. The WBA and the WEC backed down, and they dropped it. They recognised the referee's 10 count, and Buster Douglas still kept his titles. Now, in the meantime, between fights, Buster Douglas got very, very famous, as you can imagine. He even had a video game come out, which I actually owned on the Sega Master System when I was a kid. And he enjoyed his life a bit too much. He didn't take his training very seriously. And he wouldn't defend his title until October the 25th in 1990 at the Mirage in Las Vegas, when he would face former undisputed Cruiserweight champion Evander Holyfield. Now, there's not much to say about this particular fight because Buster Douglas came in quite overweight, quite out of shape, and he was underprepared. I think he was pretty much uninterested, and he was pretty sluggish. He was pretty slow. The slightly smaller, faster young challenger, Evander Holyfield, it was all over in the third. Douglas threw a right uppercut which missed. Holyfield countered over the top with a straight right hand which dropped Douglas. He was counted out, and we ended 1990 with Evander Holyfield as the WBA, WBC, and IBF undisputed heavyweight champion. Now, it's funny to think, since that fight on February 11th, 1990, and in this fight, by the end of the year, we had the undisputed title had changed hands twice. We had three men: Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas, and then Evander Holyfield. It was an amazing time to be a fight fan. Like I say, the WBO title was held by Francesco Damiani, as I said at the start of the video. However, he didn't make a defence of his title at all in 1990. He did have fights, but he never had any title fights. So, that's how we ended the year 1990, with Evander Holyfield as the champion, undisputed champion, and Francesco Damiani of Italy with the WBO title. Now, next time it'll get a bit more interesting in 1991. I've had great fun doing research for this. I've been bleating on for a long time. Any long time viewers of my videos will know that the 1990s heavyweight division has a special place in my heart, and to me, it's a golden era. It's not the golden era. That was the 1970s. That was the golden era in heavyweight championship boxing. But I think the 1990s, compared to what we got with the Klitschko era, and basically what we got until recently, it's been pretty piss poor and diabolical. There's a few gems here and there, but to me, the 1990s, a lot of people shit on the 90s at the time because of what came before it in the 70s. But now, this is the 1990s. To me, in my opinion, a lot of people may disagree, and it's whatever. But the 1990s was a fantastic period for heavyweight boxing. Now, as this video goes on, these videos go on, each part, I'll just be covering the title fights, okay, the world title fights. Down the line, when that's finished, I will be doing a couple of videos covering the great non-title fights that happened, okay, in the 90s. So before anybody gets in the comments, as we go on moaning, oh, what about this? What about Mercer Lewis? What about Gallotta Bowe? Yeah, don't worry, I will cover them. But for the bulk of these videos will just be the heavyweight title fights, okay? So I hope you enjoyed this. I will be back probably next week to discuss 1991, where we had some fantastic fights. Holyfield against Foreman, Ray Mercer against Tommy Morrison, and a couple of others. So till then, folks, take care, and I look forward to doing the next video.